Access Minnesota. Issues that matter to you. Access Minnesota brings you the newsmakers and the stories that shape our everyday lives, with analysis from University of Minnesota faculty experts.
April 16th of this month marks the start of Severe Weather Awareness Week in Minnesota. Most notably, the week features 2 statewide tornado drills on Thursday, April 19th at 1:45 p.m. and again at 6:55 p.m. But the campaign week is also designed to promote knowledge and preparedness for when severe weather strikes. This month on Access Minnesota, we talk with 2 weather experts to better understand weather forecasting, tornadoes, and other forms of weather extremes we begin to see this time of the year in Minnesota. Todd Krause is the Warning Coordination Meteorologist at the National Weather Service office in Chanhassen. Todd, welcome back to Access Minnesota.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Todd, how accurate are the forecasts that are being made these days by the National Weather Service?
They've really gotten much more accurate than 30, 20 years ago. It's to the point where a day from now we will be very, very close for temperature and for rain or snowfall. So the forecasts have gotten a whole lot better, and the same is true with weather warnings as well.
What about longer-term forecasts? How far out can we predict now with any level of accuracy?
Well, we go out about 7 days on our official forecast on a day-to-day basis. And then from there on, you've got climate specialists that will give the forecast, or the outlook really, for a month from now or the next 3 months and even beyond. But in a weather office, a field office like ours, we concentrate on the next 7 days, and we especially pay attention to the first 3 days. By the time you get to the 7th day from now, the forecast is typically maybe about 55 or 60% in general. And so, again, we concentrate really on the first few days, and really by the time you get to a week from now, that's in many ways just a general outlook in some ways. So the first 3 days, 3, 4, 5 days, that's what we really pay great attention to.
If you go back, say, over the past 50 or 60 years, what are some of the key technological innovations that came about that made weather forecasting more accurate?
Well, I would say, first of all, the radar is one thing. You look at some of the radar images from 50 years ago, and to try to get a tornado warning out ahead of time was virtually impossible. Nowadays, with such excellent radar and understanding of storms, we're almost always able to get a tornado warning out ahead of time. And so that's probably the most important thing, but just the day-to-day aspect of technology improving. I mean, the computer's power nowadays versus what it was like 50 years ago is just night and day. And so you have so much better ability to understand and run computer models and come up with computer models that are showcasing some of the real esoteric aspects of forecasting. And sometimes those esoteric aspects result in 6 inches of snow as opposed to a trace of snow. And so you have to look at some of those really fine and detailed items to help get that forecast correct. And with the computer system we've got nowadays, we're able to do that. Therefore, it's going to be a pretty rare day now if we completely miss a storm that has a foot of snow. Whereas I certainly remember, years and years ago, that was the case. Sometimes there were times when you'd miss a storm that would produce 6 or 10 inches of snow. That just, I don't think is going to happen much anymore at all.
Todd, describe the role of the National Weather Service. Obviously, a key duty is forecasting the weather on a day-to-day basis, but I imagine special priority is given to severe weather. Tell us more about that.
Sure. Yeah, the #1 role of the National Weather Service is to save lives and property, and also to improve the economic aspect of the United States. But saving lives and property is really our main calling, and therefore severe weather is really the thing that we concentrate on. Certainly in wintertime, blizzards, that is very, very important. Usually a snowstorm has got 2 or 3 days of advance notice, and so we'll get warnings out, watches and warnings out ahead of time, and so people can then be aware that there's a snowstorm moving in or a high wind or something like that. But when it comes to spring and summertime and our severe weather, that's when storms develop so much more quickly. You can get a tornado sometimes in half an hour from the time the cloud first develops in the sky and to where you've got a tornado touching down. Sometimes that has happened in as little as half an hour. You're not going to be able to get information out a day or two ahead of time about a specific location for that tornado. So getting that tornado warning out, we will issue those, and usually there will be anywhere from 5 minutes notice, more likely 10 or 15 minutes notice on that tornado warning, and that's really what we focus in on. And we'll spend a lot of time training weather spotters, and that's very important. They'll report in what they're seeing, but when it comes to severe weather warnings, we'll use information from the weather spotters, from the weather radar, and then also the computer models and our understanding of the state of the atmosphere. And what that really means is that there's potential where sometimes a day the humidity and the winds upstairs, the winds aloft, are such that they're not very prone to producing severe weather. On other days, the humidity and other things are such that they are prone to producing severe weather. And so the computer models are very, very important for us to understand whether or not severe weather is a threat, and if so, what type of severe weather. It might be tornadoes, might just be hail, might be strong winds, might be flooding. It's hard to say. So we'll focus on three things. One is our understanding of the atmosphere, which computer models help. Our weather radar, which is fantastic and showcases a lot of information about that storm, and then also the storm spotters. So those are the three things that we'll look at during severe weather, and as a result, by combining those, we've gotten to where there are very few occasions nowadays when there's no tornado warning.
Tell us more about the storm spotters. Who are those folks and how do they get trained?
Well, storm spotters are really, really an unsung story and something that's very, very important to our cause. Basically, there will be thousands across Minnesota that will gladly watch storms to protect their community. Now, in the Twin Cities especially, and in some other areas, you've got a lot of ham radio operators that take training to look for, to understand what kind of cloud features to look for before the tornado touches down, because that's really what the important thing is for storm spotters. Figuring it out before the general public catches on that there's a tornado developing. So we give the spotters the clues on what to look for before the tornado develops. And so in the Twin Cities area especially, you've got a lot of ham radio operators. There's some other parts of Minnesota where there are a lot of ham radio operators as well. In rural areas especially, you've got a lot of fire departments, the volunteer firefighters that will actually go out and watch for storms. Some of the ambulance crews, EMS, law enforcement as well. And so those are the storm spotters that will go out and watch and protect their community, watch for any developing tornado, and then if something does happen, they will make sure their local city knows about it so that they can activate sirens and do whatever else. And they'll also make sure that we at the Weather Service are aware of it. And so that's the job of the weather spotter, to let us know what's going on, because radar is great, but radar is a machine. You have to have people out there watching.
When Access Minnesota returns, more on how the National Weather Service issues severe weather warnings.
Access Minnesota will return after these messages.